The buzzing of my phone woke me up at 1:30 a.m. It wasn't the usual buzz of a text or call, but a different pattern, something for a security alert. Half asleep, I almost ignored it, but something made me take a closer look. The notification was from an app one didn't remember installing. It said, "Secure Track Alert. Location data accessed." My name is Brenda, and that notification was the start of everything falling apart in my otherwise normal life. I sat up in bed, trying not to wake James. He was asleep beside me, his back turned like always lately. The blue light from my phone cast strange shadows on the walls as I looked into the mysterious app. It wasn't on my home screen, but hidden deep in my phone settings. Somehow, it had been running in the background for who knows how long. "What the hell?" I whispered, my hands trembling as I explored the app. A map popped up, showing everywhere I'd been in the past week. My daily drive to work at the high school, my Friday coffee with Barbara, even my secret visit to a jewelry store to buy James an anniversary gift. Suddenly, the bedroom felt hot and claustrophobic. I slipped out of bed and walked quietly to the kitchen, passing my daughter Samantha's room. She was asleep, completely unaware that my world was starting to fall apart. In the harsh kitchen light, I dug deeper into the app. It wasn't just tracking my location. It had my text messages, call logs, and even my internet history. Each discovery felt like another blow. Who could do this?
And why?
My hands shook as I poured myself a glass of water. The house was silent except for the hum of the refrigerator, making everything feel even more unreal. My phone buzzed again. Another alert. Secure Track Alert. Audio recording in progress. My stomach dropped. Audio recording? I frantically searched the app until I found a folder labeled Recordings. The newest one was from 6 days ago. It played back my conversation with Barbara at the coffee shop. "I don't know, Barbara," my own voice said, distant and tinny. "James has been different lately, working late, always on his phone." I quickly stopped the playback, feeling sick. Someone had been listening to my private conversations. Someone had been following my every move. The app needed physical access to be installed, which made it even worse. Suddenly, I heard footsteps upstairs and I froze. They were heading toward our bedroom. It was just James, probably going to the bathroom like he usually did at night. But for the first time in 16 years of marriage, the sound of his familiar footsteps made my skin crawl. I quickly closed the app and deleted the alerts. My instincts as a teacher kicked in. Don't show your hand too early. Gather evidence. Make a plan. My students would never guess that their Shakespeare-quoting English teacher could think like this. Back in bed, I lay awake, listening to James's steady breathing. My mind was spinning. The man sleeping beside me, the father of my child, my partner of 16 years. What was he hiding? Why would he need to track me? Or was this part of something bigger? One thing was clear. I couldn't confront him. Not yet. Not until I knew what I was dealing with. Tomorrow, I'd start digging. Tomorrow, I'd figure out what kind of secrets had been wrapped around my life. As I finally started to drift off to sleep, my phone buzzed one more time. I almost missed it in my exhaustion. A text from an unknown number. It read, "Be careful what you look for, Brenda. Some truths are better left buried." Morning came too fast. I hadn't slept much after finding the spyware, but I forced myself through the usual routine. The smell of coffee and toast filled the kitchen as I packed Samantha's lunch, trying to keep my hands steady. James came downstairs in his crisp blue suit, the one he always wore for big client meetings. He barely glanced at me as he poured coffee into his travel mug. "Big meeting today?" I asked casually, watching his face. "Yeah," he said, not looking at me. "Probably won't be home for dinner." He stirred his coffee slowly, almost robotically. "The Morrison accounts?" I asked, remembering the excuse he'd used 3 times in the last 4 weeks. "Yeah, it needs extra attention."
He didn't look me in the eyes.
I wanted to scream at him, to demand answers about the app. But instead, I just nodded and went back to making Samantha's sandwich. "Mom, have you seen my USB drive?" Samantha ran into the kitchen, her dark hair still wet from the shower. "The blue one with all my coding projects?" "Check the living room," I said, my voice steady, even though my whole world felt anything but. I said you were working there last night. Samantha paused, looking back and forth between James and me. She'd always been sharp, too smart for her own good sometimes. Her eyes narrowed as she noticed the space between us, the way we didn't touch. James moved past me to grab his briefcase. Dad, you promised to help me with my computer science project this weekend, she said suddenly. The one about digital privacy and security. I almost dropped the knife I was holding. James's shoulders stiffened. Sorry, sweetheart, he said, his voice tight. Something came up at work. Maybe next weekend. Samantha's face fell, but I saw something else in her expression. Suspicion, maybe. Right? Work again, she muttered. James quickly kissed her forehead and headed for the door. Love you both, he called out, but it sounded flat, like he was reading lines from a script. After he left, Samantha turned to me. Mom, what's going on? What do you mean? I said, keeping busy with the dishes. Dad's been acting weird lately. And you, she hesitated. You look like you haven't slept. Plus, you're washing the same plate for the third time. I froze, then set the plate down, forcing a smile. Just work stress, honey. You know how it is with final season. Mom, I'm 15, not 5, Samantha said, crossing her arms. I know something's wrong. I heard you up last night. Before I could say anything, my phone buzzed. Another secure track alert. I grabbed it quickly, making sure Samantha didn't see. But I caught a glimpse of the message. Audio recording saved. Kitchen, 6:45 a.m. I need to get to school early, I said, grabbing my purse. Teacher's meeting. Will you be okay taking the bus? Samantha's face hardened.
Sure.
Whatever. The drive to school was a blur. Once I parked, I pulled out my phone and found Barbara's number. We'd been friends since college and she worked in IT security. If anyone could help me figure this out, it was her. But before I could call, a new text appeared from the unknown number. Careful who you trust, Brenda. Barbara might not be the friend you think she is. My stomach dropped. How did they know I was about to call Barbara? Unless, I looked around the parking lot, suddenly feeling exposed. The spyware must have access to my phone's camera too. A knock on my window made me jump. It was Thomas from the English department, looking concerned. You okay, Brenda? The meeting's about to start. Yeah, coming, I said, grabbing my things. My mind was spinning. I couldn't trust my phone. I couldn't trust my husband. Maybe I couldn't even trust Barbara. And worst of all, I was starting to feel cracks in my bond with Samantha, the one person I thought I could count on. I was trying to protect Samantha from all of this. As I walked into school, another text came through. Smart girl, your daughter. Maybe she should look into that computer science project more carefully. Lots of interesting things to learn about digital privacy these days. This wasn't just a threat anymore. They were dragging my daughter into it. And that was my breaking point. I found Robert Downey's office tucked between a laundromat and a Chinese takeout place. The private investigator's worn face matched his old leather chair as he looked over the screenshots of the spyware app one had taken. Secure Track Pro, he said, taking off his reading glasses. High-end stuff. Not something you'd get off the usual market. Can you trace it? I asked. He nodded slowly. Already did. It was bought 5 weeks ago, through a shell company. But here's the interesting part. He turned his computer screen toward me. The buyer used your home address for billing. My stomach sank. James? Robert kept clicking through files. That's not all. The shell company has been making regular payments to a rental property in Hoover's personal care. Nice place, not cheap. Too pricey for just one person and less. Someone else is helping with the rent. I finished, my voice bitter. Bingo. Robert pulled up a photo that made my world tilt. It showed James leaving the building with a woman I didn't recognize. She was younger than me, effortlessly beautiful in a way that made me feel every wrinkle on my face. His hand rested on the small of her back, a gesture that felt far too intimate. Carol Burnett, Robert said softly. She works at James's firm. Junior partner, fast-tracked for promotion. My phone buzzed again. Another secure track alert, but I ignored it, focusing on the dates below the photos. These are from the nights, he said, he was working late on the Morrison account. There's more, Robert said, hesitating. The spyware? It wasn't his idea. Based on the email trails I found, Carol pushed for it. She's been encouraging him to make a clean break. A clean break. My voice sounded far away. From you and Samantha. Robert slid a folder across his desk. These are copies of everything I've found, including, he tapped a document inside the folder. A consultation with a divorce lawyer. Last week. The fluorescent lights above felt too bright, and the smell of Chinese food drifting through the wall made me feel sick. Why the spyware then? If he's already planning to leave? Insurance, maybe. Or control. People do strange things when they're living double lives. My phone buzzed again. This time I looked. The message read, "Having fun with Robert? Wonder what James would think about his wife meeting strange men in secret." I showed Robert the text. His face darkened. "They're watching you, probably through your phone's camera." He grabbed a post-it and wrote something down. "This is a burner phone number.
Use it to contact me from now on."
And Brenda, he looked me in the eye, "Be careful. People who do this kind of surveillance aren't playing games." As I walked to my car, another text came through. "TikTok, Brenda. How long before Samantha finds out her mom is sneaking around too?" I sat in the car, gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. They were trying to mess with me, make me doubt myself, make me feel guilty for uncovering their lies. My phone rang. It was James. "Hey," he said, his voice calm and casual. Too casual. "Just checking if you can pick up Samantha today. My meeting's running late." "Meeting," I said flatly. I wondered if Carol was sitting next to him, maybe running her fingers through his hair like I used to. Actually, I heard myself say, "I have a meeting too." With the Morrison account, there was a long pause. "The Morrison account?" His voice cracked slightly. "Yeah," I said, starting my car. "Funny thing about that account, James, they shut down 4 months ago." Before he could reply, I added, "Enjoy your meeting. Say hi to Carol for me," and hung up. My heart was pounding. Through the windshield, I saw my reflection, pale, scared, but there was something else. Determination. My phone lit up with James's name, but I declined the call. Then I opened the Secure Track app. If they wanted to watch me, fine. Let them see what happens when you push a teacher into a corner. It was time to pay Carol Burnett a visit. But I didn't make it to Carol's apartment that day. Instead, I found myself sitting in my classroom during lunch, staring at a stack of unsigned permission slips for the next day's field trip. That's when Samantha appeared in the doorway. "You missed breakfast again," she said, dropping her backpack by my desk. "And Dad didn't come home last night." I forced a smile. He texted, "Late meeting."
"Stop."
Samantha's voice cracked. "Just stop lying to me." The fluorescent lights hummed softly as we stared at each other. Her face had changed over the past year, losing its childhood softness. There were sharper edges now, and her eyes, too sharp, too knowing, seemed to see everything. "I found something on Dad's laptop," she said, pulling out her phone. "Remember when he asked me to help organize his work files last weekend?" My stomach turned. "Samantha." There were emails. Lots of them. To someone named Carol. She placed her phone on my desk, screen up. "He's planning to leave us, isn't he?" Before I could answer, a student appeared at the door. "Mrs. Thompson, Principal Paul needs to see you. He says it's urgent." I found James waiting with the principal. He had on his courtroom smile, the one he used when he was about to destroy someone's credibility on the witness stand. "Brenda," Principal Paul began, looking uncomfortable, "serious allegations have been made about inappropriate contact with a private investigator during school hours. There are also concerns about your emotional stability and how it might affect your teaching." I felt the trap closing around me. James had beaten me to it, spinning the story his way. Of course, he was a lawyer. This was what he did best. "I'm worried about you, honey," James said, his voice full of fake concern. "The paranoid accusations, the secret meetings, this isn't like you. Let me help." Help? Like he helped by putting spyware on my phone? Like he helped by planning to leave us while pretending everything was fine? "Mr. Thompson suggests taking a leave of absence," Paul added, "to work through these issues." My phone buzzed, a secure track alert. The app was probably recording this conversation, proof of how they were trying to make me seem unstable, paranoid, and unfit, not just to teach, but to parent. I have documentation, I said quietly, keeping my voice steady. James's smile faltered for the first time. Including the spyware you and Carol installed on my phone, I continued. The shell company. The apartment in Hoover's personal care. I turned to Paul. And recordings of every conversation I've had in the past 5 weeks. That includes conversations with students and their parents. How do you think the school board would feel about such a massive privacy violation? Paul's face went pale. Privacy violation, he stammered. I'll email you all the evidence, I said, standing up. But right now, I need to talk to my daughter.
She found her emails, James.
The ones to Carol about leaving us. James's calm, controlled mask cracked. Samantha found.
Yeah.
So while you're busy trying to ruin my career to cover your tracks, our daughter is sitting in my classroom, trying to figure out why her dad is abandoning her. I walked out, leaving them speechless behind me. In the hallway, my phone buzzed again, not from Secure Track this time, but a text from Robert. Got something big. Carol isn't who she claims to be. Meet ASAP. Back in my classroom, Samantha was still there, working on her laptop. Lines of code scrolled across the screen. What are you doing? I asked. Fighting back, she said, not looking up. Did you know most spyware has weak spots? Backdoors that can be exploited. Dad should have done better research before buying it. I watched as her fingers flew across the keyboard, her face calm but focused. At that moment, she looked so much like me, not the scared, broken version of me from the past few weeks, but the strong version I used to be. I had to step up and be a mom again. Samantha finally looked up from her laptop. I found something else in the app's code. Something bad, really bad. I don't think this is just about Dad's affair anymore. My phone buzzed, but this time it wasn't from the unknown number. It was from Carol herself. We need to talk. Your husband isn't the only one being blackmailed. Meet me tonight. It's not just spyware, Samantha said, her laptop casting a soft blue glow on her face as we sat in Robert Downey's dim office. It's part of something bigger. Look at these network connections. Robert leaned closer, squinting at her screen. These IP addresses, they're routed through law firms across the state. Dad's firm isn't the only one involved, I said, thinking about Carol's text. How many, Samantha? 17 so far, she replied, her fingers moving quickly over the keyboard. They're all using the same spyware, all linked to a central server. And they're all handling high-profile divorce cases, Robert added, shaking his head. Surveillance footage, private conversations, location data, it's a gold mine for divorce settlements. My phone buzzed again. Another message from Carol, they're watching. Don't trust James. Meet me at Riverside Park. 55 minutes. It's a trap, Robert warned, reading over my shoulder. Probably, I said, grabbing my coat. But she's scared. You didn't hear her voice in the recording Samantha found. Wait, Samantha said, turning her laptop toward me. Look at this email thread. Carol tried to back out 5 weeks ago. The next day, someone sent her this. The email had an attachment, a photo of Carol leaving a building I recognized. It was the women's shelter where I volunteered. She was helping a young woman inside, both of them looking over their shoulders. Her sister, Robert said softly. She's been hiding from an abusive ex for 4 months. Carol's been helping her stay off the grid. The pieces clicked into place. They're using her sister to control her, I said. Mom. Samantha's voice trembled slightly. There's something else. Remember that college fund Dad started for me last month? My stomach tightened. What about it? The money, it's not mine. It's being funneled through shell companies. The same ones paying for the spyware. Robert's face hardened. He's helping them launder money. The room felt like it was spinning. James wasn't just having an affair. He wasn't just spying on me. He was involved in something far darker. Something that could destroy not only our marriage but his career, his freedom, everything. My phone buzzed again. This time it was a video. It showed Samantha walking home from school yesterday. The message underneath was chilling. Back off or she's next. They're bluffing, Robert started, but I was already on my feet, heading for the door. Mom, stop. Samantha called after me. We need a plan. I have one, I said, turning back to see her worried face. She looked so much older than 15. I'm ending this.
Tonight.
Not alone, you're not, Samantha said, grabbing her laptop. I can hack their network, Samantha said. Shut down the spyware remotely and give you some time.
Absolutely not, I said.
It's too dangerous. More dangerous than you meeting Carol alone? Samantha stood her ground, chin lifted stubbornly. They're already threatening me. At least let me fight back. Robert cleared his throat. The kid's right. You need backup. I've got a friend in the FBI's cybercrime division. One call. No, I interrupted, thinking about Carol's sister and all the other people being blackmailed.
Not yet.
If we scare them off now, people could get hurt. We need to know exactly what we're dealing with first. My phone buzzed again, a photo of James walking into an unfamiliar building, followed by the message. TikTok. Your husband's about to make a deal that can't be undone. Choose wisely. I looked at Samantha, this brilliant, brave girl who refused to back down. Then at Robert, who had become more than just an investigator. He was an ally. Okay, I said finally.
Here's the plan.
Samantha, you and Robert work on hacking their network, but you stay here where it's safe. I'll meet Carol and find out what she knows. And then, Robert asked. I thought of the lies, the manipulation, and the threats against my daughter. And then, I said, we burn it all down. Every last bit of it. As I left the office, I heard Samantha's fingers flying across her keyboard. I smiled grimly. They thought they could threaten a mother's child? They were about to find out just how dangerous that could be. Riverside Park was empty when I arrived, except for Carol, sitting alone on a bench near the water. She looked different from the photos Robert had shown me, smaller, more fragile. They're watching, she said, her voice low, eyes scanning the area. But Samantha's program worked. We've got about 10 minutes before the spyware comes back online. I sat beside her, keeping some space between us. Tell me about my husband's deal. It's not just James, she said, her hands shaking as she handed me a USB drive. The firm's been running this scheme for years. They install spyware on their own clients' devices, dig up dirt on both sides in divorces, and use it to manipulate settlements. The money laundering? That's just extra. My phone buzzed, a text from Samantha. Mom, something's wrong. Dad's not at the office. The message cut off. A familiar voice came from behind me. I really wish you'd stayed out of this, Brenda. James stepped out of the shadows, flanked by 4 men in suits. They looked cold, professional, and dangerous. The thing is, James continued, walking closer, you were never supposed to find the spyware. That was Carol's mistake. He gave her a disappointed look. She got sloppy. Just like you got sloppy with the college fund. I stood in front of Carol, putting myself between her and James. Using our daughter's account to launder money? That's low. Even for you. It's called protecting our future, James said, his smile cold and empty. Everything I did was for us. The firm's offering me partner, Brenda, real power. All I had to do was show my loyalty. By spying on your own families? By proving I understand how the game works. He gestured to the 4 men standing beside him. We can handle this quietly. The firm is willing to be generous, a clean divorce, full custody of Samantha, and a nice settlement. All you have to do is walk away. My phone vibrated. A message from Robert. FBI on the way. Stall him. And if I don't walk away? I asked. James's face hardened. Then things get messy for everyone. He pulled out his phone, showing me a live feed of the women's shelter. Carol's sister was on the screen. And maybe that bright future Samantha has in computer science. James added, it'd be a shame if she got caught hacking corporate servers. You'd threaten your own daughters? The words felt bitter in my mouth.
I'm protecting her, he said.
Teaching her how the world really works. He stepped closer, his voice softening. Come on, Brenda. Take the deal. We can all walk away from this. Behind me, Carol let out a quiet, broken sound. I thought of her sister, the families torn apart by this scheme, and Samantha, who was learning the worst truth about her father. "You're right about one thing," I said softly. "This ends tonight." I pulled out my phone and turned the screen toward him. A live stream was playing, James's entire confession. It was being sent directly to Robert's FBI contact and backed up to secure servers. James's face turned pale. "You didn't come alone," he said. "Neither did you," I replied. Suddenly, flashlights lit up the park as FBI agents stepped out of the shadows. The men beside James melted away like smoke, leaving him alone as the agents closed in. "Brenda, please," he begged, all the confidence gone. "Everything I did was for us. For Samantha." "No," I said, watching as the agents cuffed him. "Everything you did was for yourself." My phone buzzed one last time, a message from an unknown number. "This isn't over. The firm protects its own." I looked around. James was being led away. Carol was crying as agents reassured her that her sister was safe. The life I'd built was crumbling, and I knew the firm would fight back. My career might be over.
Our savings were probably gone.
And back in Robert's office, Samantha had just seen her father choose power over family. But standing there in the dark, watching James's world fall apart, I realized something important. Sometimes you have to burn everything down to see what's worth saving. My phone buzzed again. A text from Samantha. "Mom, are you okay?" No, I wasn't okay. But for the first time in weeks, I knew exactly what I needed to do next. I thought about what I was fighting for. The holding cell at the federal building wasn't what I expected. James sat there in his expensive suit, looking both powerful and pitiful under the harsh fluorescent lights. 2 FBI agents stood outside, but they had given us privacy for this conversation. "You could have taken the deal," James said quietly. "We could have kept our family." "Our families," I repeated, placing the USB drive Carol had given me on the table between us. "Let's talk about family, James. Let's talk about the 35 other families your firm destroyed this year alone."
His jaw tightened.
"You don't understand how things work in my world." "Oh, I understand perfectly." I slid a pile of papers across the table, bank statements, emails, surveillance logs. "You chose power over people, money over morals. And now you're choosing your firm over your daughter. Leave Samantha out of this. You brought her into this when you used her college fund to launder money," I said, my voice steady even though my hands were shaking. "When you threatened her future to protect your scheme." A knock at the door made us both jump. Samantha stood there, with Robert behind her. I hadn't expected her to come. I'd tried to protect her from this moment, but the determined look on her face reminded me so much of myself. "I want to talk to him," she said. James's face crumpled. "Sweetheart, don't." Samantha walked in and sat beside me, opening her laptop. "I found something in the spyware code. Something Mom doesn't know about yet." My stomach dropped. James's face turned pale. "The program wasn't just recording conversations," Samantha said, her voice shaking slightly. "It was making fake ones. Creating false evidence to use against the client's spouses. And Mom." She turned the laptop toward us, showing a screen filled with audio files. "They were building a case against you too." The files listed doctored conversations, edited photos, and fabricated stories, an entire false history of misconduct with my students. "Insurance," James whispered. "In case I ever found out." I asked, the rage I'd been holding back boiling over. "In case I ever threatened your precious firm." James looked away. "The firm required leverage on everyone involved. Even me." He reached for Samantha's hand, but she pulled it away. "I never wanted to use it," he said. "But you would have," Samantha said firmly. "Just like you used Carol's sister. Just like you've used everyone else." A commotion outside the room caught our attention. Through the window, I saw Carol being led in by more agents. Her face was streaked with tears, but there was a fierce determination in her eyes. Behind her, a line of men in suits, senior partners from the firm, followed, their powerful facades cracking as federal agents marched them in. "They're all turning on each other," Robert said from the doorway. "The whole house of cards is collapsing." James stood up suddenly, desperation in his eyes. Brenda, please. I can still fix this, James said. The firm has connections, resources. Stop. Samantha's voice cut through his excuses. Just stop lying. Mom found the spyware, but I found the truth. I'm the one who cracked their encryption.
Me.
Your daughter. The one you were ready to sacrifice. She stood, gathering her laptop. I used to think you were the smartest person I knew. Now I see you're just a bully who thought he could control everyone with their secrets. She turned to me. Can we go home now, Mom? James reached for her again. Samantha, everything I did was for yourself, she said, cutting him off. Mom protected me. You just protected your power. As we turned to leave, James called out one last time. What happens now? I looked at Samantha, my amazing daughter, who had grown stronger through all this. At Robert, who had become a true friend. And at Carol, visible through the window, who had finally chosen truth over fear. Then I looked at James one last time. Now we rebuild, I said. Without you. As we walked out, Samantha slipped her hand into mine. Behind us, James's world continued to fall apart. But ahead of us was something new, a future built on truth, not secrets. Strength, not power. Love, not control. My phone buzzed one last time, a message from the school board. Position secure. Evidence of the firm's manipulation cleared. When can you return to teaching? I smiled and squeezed Samantha's hand. We had a lot of healing to do, but for the first time in months, the path ahead was clear. 4 months later, I stood in our new apartment, watching Samantha set up her computer station in what used to be our dining room. The space was smaller than our old house, but it felt more like home.
Mom.
Samantha called, excitement in her voice. The cybersecurity program accepted me for their summer workshop. I walked over to see the acceptance email and couldn't help but think about how much had changed. The trial was still ongoing, but James had pleaded guilty to lesser charges in exchange for testifying against the firm. The scandal had rocked the legal community, exposing similar schemes at law firms across the state. My phone buzzed, a text from Carol. Coffee tomorrow? Barbara's coming too. We need your input on the shelter's new security system. That had been unexpected, how Carol had gone from an enemy to an ally. After everything settled, she threw herself into helping other women escape controlling relationships. Using her insider knowledge of surveillance tactics, she worked to strengthen the shelter's protections. Think fast. Samantha tossed me a small package. Inside was a USB drive shaped like a key. It's clean, she said with a grin. I smiled, holding the drive in my hand. We still had challenges ahead, but for the first time in a long time, I felt hope. I checked my phone and smiled. We could laugh about it now, but those weeks of uncovering the spyware had changed both of us. Samantha had turned her pain into purpose and was now the youngest intern at Robert's new cybersecurity consulting firm. And me? I was back to teaching, but it felt different, better, more meaningful. Professor Thompson, a student's voice called from my laptop. Right, office hours, I said, snapping back to the present. Even over video chat, teaching felt more real now. Just a minute. I called back, then turned to Samantha. Dinner at 6. Barbara's bringing that pasta you like. Can't, Samantha said, packing up her laptop. Meeting Robert and his FBI friend about the workshop curriculum. She paused for a moment, then added softly. Dad's sentencing is next week. The room felt heavier for a moment. We had both received letters from James, apologies, explanations, promises to change. But they sat unopened in my desk drawer. Some bridges, once burned, shouldn't be rebuilt. My phone buzzed again, a text from an unknown number. You thought you won, but power always protects its own. I showed the message to Samantha, who was already typing.
Traced it, she said.
Just another angry ex-partner from the firm. Want me to forward it to Roberts? No, I said, deleting the message. Some people never learn that real power isn't about control.
The doorbell rang.
Barbara was early for our prep session. We were presenting at next month's educational conference about digital privacy in schools. It turned out my experience had value beyond just survival. Coming. I called, but Samantha was already at the door. She and Barbara had grown close, bonding over coding and their shared love of cheesy sci-fi movies. "Hey, warrior women's," Barbara said, dropping bags of takeout on the counter. "Ready to change the world?" I glanced around our new home. Samantha's workspace was set up where she worked to help others protect their privacy. Conference materials were spread across my desk. And the friendship between Barbara and Carol had blossomed as they worked together to improve the shelter's security. "You know what's funny?" I said, grabbing plates. "When this all started, I thought it was about revenge. About making James pay for what he did to us." "It wasn't," Samantha said, setting up her laptop. "It was about deciding who we wanted to be after the betrayal." Barbara raised an eyebrow. "When did you get so wise, kid?" "When my mom showed me that strength isn't about having power over others," Samantha said, smiling at me. "It's about helping others find their power." My phone buzzed one last time, a message from Robert. "Got that teaching position approved. You start the cybersecurity awareness program next semester." Samantha's curriculum suggestions were brilliant. I looked at Samantha and smiled. The road ahead wasn't perfect, but it was ours, and for the first time in a long time, the future felt bright. I looked at my daughter, this incredible person who had grown stronger, not in spite of the challenges we faced, but because we faced them together. I looked at Barbara, who had become more than just a friend, and at the life we had rebuilt from the wreckage of betrayal. Some scars never fully heal, but they remind us of how strong we are. And sometimes, the best revenge isn't about tearing down your enemies. It's about creating something better from the ruins they left behind. "All right," I said, opening the takeout. "Let's change the world."